allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Mayor Kratzky, I am here. Moko is absent tonight. Groko?
Here.
Kufal is also absent. Padilla? And Eaker.
Here.
We'll take a moment to look over the agenda and take a motion to approve the agenda for today, Wednesday, March 6th, 2024.
So moved.
We have a motion by Eaker,
I'll second it.
seconded by Groko. Any discussion changes? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Comments, updates, concerns? Do we have any citizens here that would like to speak tonight? Nope. Moving on to council members. Any updates? City staff?
I just have one quick item. I got an email from MnDOT last week. You'll recall they did that line of sight evaluation here of Highway 5 and 4th Street intersection. They are asking if we could get together and meet sometime after March 25th. So I talked to Justin Black today about getting some dates from him. So we're looking at the last week of this month or the first week of April. And so staff will be meeting, and I'm asking if any of the council members would like to sit in on that meeting as well. At this point in time, they did not share any of their details as far as their evaluation.
Could you maybe let us know when it is, and then we could see
Okay.
if there's any interest in
I'll
who's
send
available.
it out my Friday email, if that's okay.
That'd be great.
And then you guys can let me know.
Okay, perfect. Anything else?
That's all I have.
Okay. We move on to the consent agenda, and I need a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Groko, seconded by Eaker. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Don't have any public hearings tonight. Under communication requests and petitions, we just have the senior center newsletter. Moving on to 9 on our agenda, department and committee reports and action items. The first thing we have is the police department, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And Charlie is here, so I'll invite him up to the podium.
It's gonna be record time, doesn't it? Usually not up here first. Well, good evening, everyone. I won't take up much of your time. I just have one item tonight. It'd be, I guess, talking about the new, basically the city of Gaylord doesn't have a ordinance in place right now regulating the use of firearms or using them or firing them off within city limits. Steve and I talked about it, ran it by our city attorney. They came up with a draft policy. I guess if anybody has any questions on that, I'll try and answer them tonight. Otherwise, I guess what we're looking for is just to, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but set a public hearing for the next council meeting to discuss it.
Yes. I know this probably sounds a little surprising that we don't have something in our codes already. I'm guessing at one time we did, and maybe when we had the codification a few years ago that somehow it got left out. This is fairly common for cities to have a code that basically prevents anybody from doing any firearms in the community or anything that would be considered a weapon. I will share, last year when somebody inquired about this, they were somebody that actually is shooting in archery, does archery in town in their backyard. I know that we did have at least one incident last year we had archery involved, and so that's what kind of brought this to light, because then we started looking for this in our code and did not find it. So I guess what we're recommending would be any type of weapon, so archery included. And I don't believe that's uncommon.
Okay. So we'll need a motion to schedule a public hearing for 7 p.m. on April 3rd for the purpose of considering an ordinance regulating the firing of or use of weapons within city limits.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Padilla, seconded by Eaker. Any further discussion or questions? And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you much.
Very much. And the rest of our city departments, there is nothing on the agenda. Unfinished business, we don't have anything. So new business, we'll move to 11A, Sibley County Recycling Center proposal, and I will turn that over to Steve.
Al Christensen is here this evening. He's the Tri-County Solid Waste. He's also with the county. They've been looking for a site to establish a recycling center, and Al's been looking diligently at the city of Gaylord for a site like that. And he's going to come up to the podium here shortly. But basically, it would be a collection site for people to drop off throughout the county. TVs, electronics, appliances, mattresses, and box springs. So that would be just an area. They would have it. My understanding is that they would open it periodically on a monthly basis. And it would be available, then again, for any county residents to drop off those types of things. I don't know if we have anything like that anywhere in the county at this particular time. So this would be something new, and it would be another asset for the community to have that we would be able to offer for our residents. The challenge we've been having is finding a location for it. So tonight Al has got a proposal here as far as a possible location on Industrial Avenue. It's currently a vacant lot. The lot in question is zoned I-2, which is our medium industrial district. One of the things that we require in our zoning code is before an accessory use, and I think this would be considered an accessory use, a principal building has to be constructed on the property first. What he's proposing is that he would move in storage containers, shipping containers, that would basically, people would put the items in there. Once those containers are full, they would trade those out or move them out and move in new ones. So I would consider those like an accessory. They are a structure, and so for that reason, I guess that we would have to require a building to be built there. We do state it in our code that no accessory building structure can be built or put in place prior to the principal building. And so we don't specify what the specifics of a principal building would have to be, but generally speaking, a principal building is usually bigger than the accessory building. For example, somebody couldn't build a garage on their residential property, single family, that would be bigger than their house. It just wouldn't look very uniform. The primary purpose of the property is for the house. So this is an example. So with that, I think if it's okay, I'll ask Al to come up and introduce himself, and he can explain better than I can as far as what they're proposing here. So, thank you.
Right. Hello, Al Christensen, Tri-County Solid Waste. First, I'd like to thank Steve for his time spent with me discussing this. We've been kind of cooking this on the burner since last fall, pitching the idea. Steve, I didn't send this to you, so I apologize. I made plenty of copies, but it's also, can I hand this out?
Sure, yeah.
It's kind of a second part of my pitch or proposal to the city. Okay, very good. Okay, thank you, everybody. So, the original pitch was, as Steve stated, that a collection point for appliances, electronics, TVs, mattress, box springs. Currently, the county, we do our once-a-year collection at the fairgrounds in Arlington. And then other than that, residents have to go elsewhere for those things to dispose of. So certainly Gaylord is centrally located. It would be ideal to serve all of our residents. And certainly even residents from Nicollet County, if they choose to come up, they can, because they still have to pay for disposal. So part of the pitch was to have a location open maybe from April through October. Maybe, for example, first and third Wednesdays of the month, maybe the first Wednesday a 9 to 1, the second Wednesday maybe 11 to 4 or 5 to cover the lunch hour. You know, we'll have to judge that availability on participation, need, what have you. And this whole idea really is just an evolution of our existing programs. We want to evolve, we want to make disposal more convenient, more available to people rather than just once a year. So again, they can all bring it here. So the next step then is identifying a property, and so this property we were aware of that became available. So then Steve and I started talking, and as he pointed out, maybe the crux of the matter is that medium 1-2 medium industrial district, your 153.145, is really the principal building, the size. Originally, our pitch was to have Sibley County, they would buy shipping containers from a business that we have used before in St. Peter to store electronics, appliances, mattresses. So when we open for business, the items go in there. When we close at the end of the day, everything is contained. And so we were made aware of that there's shipping containers on a adjacent property under a CUP, I believe. So they are existing. So part of the intent was to have shipping containers and maybe a little hut, Menards building or whatever, but then we kind of got into the details of a principal building. And so the question is the size. Is it a 10 by 10? Is it more than that? What have you? So it's, you know, that's kind of the main question. And maybe just to, not speaking for our Sibley County Commissioners, but just an idea as you, the city, consider this pitch and the county dial in this idea as we go back and forth. Perhaps the principal building is the original pitch of a 10 by 10 hut for an office that people pay where it's fenced in, or maybe the county commissioners go whole hog. We've been saving money for years. Maybe we build a larger building where the shipping containers are enclosed, where there is an office that is within that building. Maybe it's a 60 by 80. You know, the shipping containers are 40 feet long. They're 10 feet wide by 40 feet long. So maybe they're enclosed in a building, and then maybe we don't do a fence. So again, it's a back and forth, since the principal building in this zoning is kind of gray. Maybe we could work together and see where that happy medium is. So that was part of the original pitch to Steve. Now, the county also, with wanting to serve our community, and really it just would be locally, is to also maybe use the same property for a 24/7 recycling site. We have, now this is LeSueur County, this is in Lee Center. It's by the county highway shop in Lee Center. We have one of these up in Green Isle at the county highway shop. And we also have one of these at Faxon Township 24/7. So yes, there is some illegal dumping. There's illegal dumping everywhere. In fact, of my 13 sites that we operate, my worst one is in the city of St. Peter, right across from the Public Works Department. We have it at the compost site, and that is the most contaminated site of illegal dumping. Initially, Faxon Township, you know, it's just a gravel pit between Henderson and Belle Plaine. So a lot of people speculated that that would turn into a junkyard. We've stayed on top of it. We've caught 1 or 2 people. We do have cameras. We do debris management and try to pick it up, as we do with Green Isle. Green Isle, we installed a fence for the property owner to keep the property owner happy there. So the intent of this recycling The first and foremost reason is for our rural people, for them to come to town and recycle their items. It can also be used as a secondary use of your residents. Your residents are required to have solid waste and recycling under your organized collection. They can't cancel that or avoid that cost. Some people will ask that. But a lot of people are into Amazon these days. If their Kirby's fill up, they can bring their cardboard there. The trick is to train everybody in to break the boxes down so they don't fill up. So again, we do 13 of these sites. Certainly spring winds create a mess. During the holidays, they overflow. So again, more mess, more complaints. I won't lie. People will call and say, you got crap blowing in my property or whatever, and we try to get STS or myself on it. I'm installing a debris catch fence in Nicollet at the Nicollet Highway Shop this year, similar to what we installed up in Green Isle. That's a nice site to keep the neighbor happy and to keep the debris down. So that's the goal. So I don't want to pretend that there are no complaints. There certainly will be when they overflow during the holidays or windy days. Even with your Kirby's around town, we had that in St. Peter when the winds came through. Was it last week? There was bags and people's recycling and carts blowing all around town. So it does happen. So anyway, that is proposal number 2, use for this property. So with that, Steve, any questions? That's kind of the pitch.
My name's Tony Padilla. I am absolutely opposed to your proposal number 2. I work in the city of Glencoe for the police department, and we've had a nightmare with these dumpsters. People come from all over, just not our county. They come from all over and dump into those recycling containers. Mattresses, everything else. The recycling company does nothing about what's getting dumped in there, but want the police department to deal with everything that gets dumped in there. The city was not happy about the location, so I am absolutely opposed to that. If the county wants to do something about that, I'm perfectly okay with the county having any of those locations out in the county. Sounds like a great idea to me, but as far as within the city limits, they're very unsightly, and the garbage blowing around, the drama that comes from them, I'm just not, I would absolutely be opposed to having anything like that within our city. We have process right now that seems to be working fine for our residents, and so I'm definitely opposed to that. As far as regarding your first proposal, who would, if you have it indoors, right, that seems like that's a no-brainer. That's really easy to monitor, and it doesn't seem like that would be an issue. But if you have it outside, you would definitely have to have some sort of fence around it. So that way we're not having an issue with people just dropping stuff off randomly, or would you have some sort of hours where the gates, the fence would be open, and somebody's there to take these products so that we're not just having stuff placed outside the fence and just dropped off. Because, we don't ultimately want to be responsible for that either, or have the county be responsible for those kind of problems where people are just dumping stuff. What are your thoughts with regards to that?
Yeah, I've been with Tri-County for 20 years. I've enjoyed all my jobs before that, and one thing I always learn is that human nature can be surprising, and it's not surprising. It can be predictable with illegal dumping. We get illegal dumping in St. Peter all the time. People will swing through the business district and just drop off a mattress, will show up behind their dumpster. It does happen. Is it an epidemic? COVID was a mess. Yeah, we had a lot of illegal dumping, trash was up, recycling was up. We were all home cleaning, bored, going nuts. So yeah, it was a disaster out there for me and for a lot of solid waste people. But again, with the 13 sites that we have, you know, it's not the epidemic. Glencoe, I know McLeod County shut their sites down. So that's why people called if they could come to Green Isle. You can ask Joe how much of an issue it is there in Green Isle. You can swing out to Faxon Township in a gravel pit. It's not a junkyard. I was just out there the other day and was really surprised how nice people have been lately. It goes in streaks, you know, human nature. I'm amazed. The illegal dumping I find usually is from when someone either leaves town, a seasonal worker, someone goes to a nursing home, or when someone passes away. That's usually when I see the big dumps come in. You can just tell, and then I check the obituaries, and it's like, oh, okay. And so you kind of learn these patterns. So I do understand your complaints about Glencoe. When us counties get together, we give each other therapy about these complaints about all naughty people and the crap that they leave. It's never ending. You know, the economy's going gangbusters. We all have crap to get rid of, and so it just shows up, you know, like the measles or something. One day it's just there. So it does, but, you know, thankfully we've been able to manage most of them. I would say all of them. Really rarely, you know, if there's trouble at a site, we do cameras and we're really quick to be on it to kind of nip it in the bud and to shut that behavior down. Most of the people, like Enley Center here, they're respectful and they appreciate it. Maybe a TV shows up or a mattress, but it's quickly taken away because that behavior can be contagious. So we try to get rid of that right away. To answer your question, sorry for the delay. Again, it would be open during hours, posted hours. What's nice about this evolution is, again, instead of posting a once-a-year collection in your tax statements, we would advertise it in the paper, social media, what have you. First and third Wednesdays, maybe we open the whole thing from 9 to 4, first and third Wednesdays, so people know. And then when we're done, if we have a gate, we close the gate. Or if we have a building, then the shipping containers are in the building, and then we wouldn't have a gate. If you have a gate, trust me, things still get dumped at the gate if they can't get inside. If there's a need to get rid of stuff, they will find a way and find a victim or a place. You know, we've had couches show up at cell towers in our 3 counties, all kinds of nice hiding spots. So it's wherever is convenient.
I actually am also opposed to the second one, and I think I like the indoor one the best.
I would agree.
All right. All right, very good. So you like, when you say the indoor, you prefer the shipping containers be in a building? Okay, so then we wouldn't have to build a fence then. Okay. So in that case, human nature, we would have maybe someone drive in at night and lean stuff up against the building.
Well, then at least they're not throwing it down at Lake Titlow.
Well, and yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the way it is with mattresses, and that's one of the things, at least they're gonna throw them out on the roadside. And yes, the city doesn't have to worry about it, but the county has to worry about it at that point in time, or the state has to worry about picking up. So somebody's gonna be picking up that mattress, and it's almost better if it goes to one of our dumpsters, as bad as it seems, you know.
Yeah.
At least it's not out on the roadside.
Or the GPL.
They're willing to
yeah.
dump it at a dumpster there, they're gonna throw it out on the roadside.
Well, I mean, I understand that, but we don't have that problem right now in the city. We don't want it in our city, quite frankly. So, well, I'm just saying, we don't have that problem in our city, and we don't want that here. So if that's happening out in the county, I'm sorry, but we don't want it here in our city. It's-
I get it.
I mean, are you asking us, do you want it to come to our city? Is that what you're saying?
We can control it better this way, is what I'm
So you're saying you'd rather have it in our city?
not in
Okay.
your city, I'm not talking about throwing it out on the curb, I'm talking about, if they would dump it in sites. Al's really good about keeping up with it, so, and that'd be our responsibility as the Tri-County Waste, it'd be our responsibility to keep up with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Bobby Harder and I faced pitchforks in the city of Henderson.
Yeah.
The people said that these sites attract rats and drug dealers. So what I asked is, they used to have a dumpster there, and I said, how many drug dealers and rats did you have when it was at the fire station? And Tom Phillips said, I didn't, the only rats were the muskrats from the river. And he says, I don't think we've had a drug deal there. He says, maybe another part of town, but not down there. So we understand the concern. It's real, especially when you look at human nature. So we moved it out to Faxon Township, and most of the people really appreciate it. But yeah, the naughty people see it as an opportunity. But when I'm out there, always a lot of people say I'm very grateful for this opportunity, and just like the Green Isle one. So again, I would encourage you to talk to the city of Green Isle people and just see how nasty things are. I think it's actually very manageable.
Are you
and very
talking
much-
about like number 2? Because I mean, I lived it.
Yes, sir, yeah.
If somebody wants to talk about it, you can, I'm willing to talk to anybody about it. I lived it.
Yeah, I did too, yeah, human
Well,
nature.
3 of us are against it, so it's not gonna pass number 2.
Yeah.
So
those
let's,
outside
we
ones.
can scratch that and be
Yeah,
done with
the
that one.
inside is
Yeah, the inside is.
something that we could certainly
Yeah.
look at, I think.
All right. So back to my first proposal then. Since this zoning with the primary building, the size of the primary building is somewhat gray, what are your thoughts? How would you like us to proceed? Again, we'll take your ideas and comments back to a county workshop, not a board meeting, but a workshop internally to get ideas, and then we'd probably come back again so we can dial this opportunity in.
Well, I guess we've all kind of said that we'd like to have a building that the containers can go inside, would be our desire if the county wants to have a location within our city at that spot.
Okay, so you'd like to see a larger building with maybe just an attached office rather than a 10 by 10 with shipping containers. So then we would probably, fencing can be expensive, so we probably wouldn't do a fence. So, okay. We would save that for a building. Okay, all right. Well, great. Any other comments?
I would ask that they could try to explore some other options as far as sites as well. This site is zoned like medium industrial, as I mentioned earlier. It's a vacant lot right now. And it is a little unique in that area. There's some personal storage buildings, as you can tell from the aerial photo. For industrial property, you generally don't have personal storage per se. Usually it's manufacturing, distribution, et cetera, businesses basically, whereas this is a little unique that way. It would be, it is a vacant lot right now that could be served by a business. So we would be giving that up, that opportunity or possibility. We'd be giving that up if this was to go with that particular location. And I know that Al has been looking, so I'm not suggesting that you haven't been considering other options, but I think we'd like to pursue some other ones as well. I'm not saying I'm not suggesting we take it off the table, but I'd just ask that we'd look at some other things as well.
Thank you, and I guess I pushed that responsibility on Steve. I did propose, is there something at the wastewater treatment plant? No. There's some other properties that, 6, I think, properties that are connected that the owner wants to sell, but it sounds like the buyer would have to install curb, gutter, and street, I believe, I think you said, Steve?
Yes.
Yeah,
This
so,
is, kind of by Melrose over there. There are some vacant lots. There is no street, though, that abuts them. They've been platted, the lots have been, but there's not the street is supposed to be Oxford. It has not been developed yet. So there is, basically, it's landlocked. They can't get to the property at this time.
so if the city can come back to the county with a, an agreeable property, so I'm sure the county would be, would look at it, but this one seems ideal. It's centrally located, it can be accessible, certainly, again, right now, I don't see it being open in the winter, but certainly a snowplow would probably go by that street. Again, right now, the proposed window is probably from maybe March or April through the end of October or November for hours, just to get rid of things. So, maybe we would close after Black Friday, I don't know, but again, it would be an internal discussion for the county for operating hours, so. So yes, so with that, I guess I will ask John to put it on the agenda at a county workshop session. And then in the meantime, if you could please, send myself or our commissioner's idea of other properties that are suitable for this, that would be great. And I appreciate all your time. I know this took quite a while, so thank you.
That's okay. Thanks for the information.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. Oops, gotta flip my page. Next, we have 11B, Resolution Number 2024-12, rezoning lots 1, 2, and 3, Block 1, Mud Lake Addition replat.
If you had a chance to read my memo on page 29 of your packet, basically, the Planning and Zoning Commission held a hearing last, let's see, let me back up if I may, please. I want to just give a little brief background here. The council back in November adopted ordinance number 362, which at that time established the use or allowed for solar gardens in the A district, agricultural/rural residence district, as a conditional use. Up until that time, we had no district that we allowed solar gardens in, even though we do have solar gardens, one in the city limits right now and some just outside. And so we established where they were to be permitted. In an effort to bring, that solar garden out there, down there right now in the Mud Lake area, that does, it does have a conditional use permit, so it was permitted. But in an effort to try to put it within a zoning, the commission held a hearing then, and they considered rezoning all the lots that are currently in the Mud Lake First Edition replat. And there is on your table, there's a large copy of the plat map for you. And we held a public hearing back in December, and a few residents did attend that. Dawn was actually at the public hearing too. And basically, most of the residents that were there, they didn't all speak, but the ones that did speak were not in favor of rezoning the property. They were concerned about additional solar gardens going in there. So the Planning Commission basically tabled their decision that evening. There was some questions as far as the history, as far as how the first garden got approved and all that, so staff put together an outline of all the events that led up to the actual adoption or approval of the conditional use permit for that particular solar garden. So we brought that back in January, and at the January meeting, staff proposed as a compromise to the residents that we would not rezone Outlot A. Outlot A abuts right up to the backyards of those properties over there. And from our perspective, the cities, we're not really looking to develop that. because it's wetlands. So there's not, we've got other lands that would be suitable, much better for any development. So it would serve as a nice buffer, which it currently does, so that would be continued. Their concern at the hearing was that the city potentially, someday down the road, we could change that. We would allow that to be turned into a solar garden. So if we rezoned it, that is. So again, in an effort to compromise, proposed from the planning commission was to leave that alone, leave it rezoned, or leave it zoned as R2, which is the same zoning that's in that whole neighborhood over there. But to go ahead and then rezone lots 1, 2, and 3. 2 and 3, basically, 2 is where the current solar garden is. 3 is immediately to the east of 2. 1 is to the north, which currently the city owns, and we have a stormwater pond on. We're never going to, do anything probably differently with that one. I mean, that storm pond's going to be there a long, long time. But if we were not to rezone that lot 1 where the pond is at, then that would be the only parcel in that vicinity that would be R2, and that would be considered spot zoning. And in Minnesota, spot zoning is illegal. And so we need to rezone that one as well. We don't want to create a spot zone. So that's what the Planning and Zoning Commission is recommending, to go ahead and rezone those 3 properties to A, Agricultural Rural Residence District, and there's a resolution in your packet for such. I should mention too, that this was an application for this rezoning that was initiated by the city. So we initiated this. And this was something that actually the Planning and Zoning did talk about when we were trying to establish something where we could allow for solar gardens in our zoning district, in all of our zoning districts. And so that was their proposal at that time. So with that, I'll open up to any questions.
I thought that when this builder came in and was talking about this whole process, he was also talking about putting houses in
I
this.
think initially it did start with that, that's my understanding, but
So now
that,
he wants to move away from that and put.
well, he moved away from it when the solar garden went in, when it got approved. So he's moved away from housing completely. He's actually looking to put another solar garden immediately on the east side of the one that's there, that would butt up to Mud Lake. He still owns the property where the current garden is at. He just leases that out for that purpose.
And did he put up a bunch of trees? Because I thought that was also
Yeah,
another condition that.
it is a condition. He did try, but they all died last year because of the drought. So he's gonna have, it is in the conditional use as one of the conditions, so he'll have to replant again this year. This was the first season that he could plant.
That's probably gonna really upset those people that live down there.
That was brought up at the hearing. They reminded him, he said, yep, and that's, I'm just relaying exactly what he said. He said that their trees died because of the drought. I don't know how much watering or how much effort they tried to keep up with it, but it was, as you know, it was a very dry year. Tough year to plant something like that.
I'm just hesitant to agree to that when he hasn't really fulfilled his current obligation to those people.
Well, that's not on the table this evening. All we're talking about is rezoning. He would still have to apply for a conditional use permit. And so that'll be likely forthcoming. He's shared with me that he is applying to Excel Energy to get authorization to do another one.
You don't think there's any chance that anything else would go back in there, but what's there now?
He owns the property. So that's what he's hoping to do with it. I mean, certainly along Mud Lake there's maybe more opportunity than there was for where the garden is currently
Yeah.
for some housing development. It's a little bit upper level. I mean, the grade is higher. So maybe, down below, it was such mucky soil.
So nothing but. those
Yeah,
paths.
it would have been, I think the cost of just doing soil corrections there would have been enormous. And I think that's why he stepped back from his housing proposal. at least in part.
Any other questions? Then we need a motion to approve resolution number 2024-12 to rezone lots 1, 2, 3, block 1, Mud Lake addition to replat to A agricultural rural residence district.
We're going to table this until,
I think I would like to, so I could look at it closer.
Is there anything you want me to bring back or look into further for you?
I think you just probably want the whole council to look at it so that the Chads can weigh in on it.
Okay.
Get their views as well, so, and then Lynn lives over there, so just some time to process it.
One of the things too, that was part, when we did this, and I'm not trying to persuade you anyway here from not tabling it. Right now, that property is zoned R2. We have, as you know, other areas in the community that are R2 that we have some bare land. Right now, somebody could come in and apply, and they may say, well, you allowed that one in the R2. Why won't you allow another one to go here in an R2 district? The council, planning and zoning, on their recommendation, the council agreed that we would allow solar gardens only in the A district. The A district is basically on our borders of the community. We wanted to push solar gardens out versus having them in. So that was part of the ideas and, I guess, thought process as far as why we were looking at it that way. And that's why we were, if this is going to come up again and again, where do we want to allow solar gardens? The decision has been made that we'll allow them in agricultural because that's on the outskirts of our community. We don't want them right in the middle of town, obviously. So that's kind of the thought process about rezoning this property then from R2 to A. We don't want somebody to come in and apply and say, well, you allow it over there. Why won't you allow it here? I have R2 as well. What's the difference? So then and I'm not suggesting you have to approve it, but you're certainly probably going to have to justify to some degree why.
I thought that it was because the land there was not as good.
Yeah,
'Cause
it
it
was
was-
like you just said, like the soil corrections,
Yeah.
and to do anything else with it really was pretty unlikely.
Mhm.
But as you just said, that, and we've looked at this before, a little bit higher up, that's pretty decent property if that would be developed. I mean, there's all of that to put into it, but I think if you add another solar garden onto that, then who's gonna wanna build on the other side of that? Then it's like in the middle.
So the current solar garden is on block 2,
Yes.
correct?
Right.
Is it possible to just rezone that
That's spot.
agricultural? No, but then we can't because that's spot. Never mind. Okay.
Well, he's ultimately going to come back with an application. If you leave it as is, for example, you just leave it alone, he's going to come back with an application, and he's going to ask, okay, you approved the first one, why won't you approve the second? And you'll have, and maybe he's going to argue it and say, well, I don't believe it's very conducive for any housing development. That would be his opinion.
But I think that's okay, but again, I think that originally when this whole plan was sold, there was a lot of things that he was saying
Yeah.
he was gonna do that he hasn't done, and he's changed his mind, and now we're being asked to change this zoning here to something else, and all we're asking is just let us table this, talk about it at the next meeting, and then give everybody an opportunity to just
Okay.
look at it.
Yeah, again, I'm not trying to persuade
Right.
you.
No, and I guess, the buffer that he said he put in, and I understand that it was a dry year, but I don't know that they really tried to go out there and water either. And that's gonna come up again and again when you're out there and nobody's on that property. It's just solar gardens, they aren't out there. So who's taking care of those plants and things that they do put in there? Nobody. So will it ever happen?
Most people still live there and look at it.
And they're very
They're
upset about
upset,
it.
yeah.
They are, and yeah, they are. Not only are they unsightly to look at, but they also talked about a buzzing noise. And I did some Google research, but the panels themselves don't make a buzzing noise, but the transformers certainly do. And maybe, mature trees would maybe help with some of that, but that needs to happen.
It's just the unfortunate thing is when, just like the guy that owns that shop and said he was gonna put the trees in, and then they don't stand by their word. It's just the unfortunate part of this business that we're in.
I would like to think before we approve any more conditional use permits, that we expect that things be corrected that need to be corrected.
This one's definitely had a lot of people in it. Very upset.
Very much so.
So there you have it, if he wants to come in and argue with you.
Lead them to Lynn.
What?
Lead them to Lynn.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's consensus to table this until we have the full council.
Yep,
You should take a motion to do so.
Okay.
so moved.
The motion by Eker to table the
Second.
motion, seconded by Padilla. Any further discussion?
This would be tabled to our next meeting then?
Is Scott going to be at the next meeting?
No.
Then it would be the meeting following that.
Okay.
Okay. So it'd be the.
April 3rd.
No?
No, it'd be the second meeting in April. Or wait,
Scott,
no,
Next
you're
meeting.
right.
Next one.
Yeah.
It'll be April.
Yep, it's April 3rd, sorry.
Yeah.
I was thinking we were further along in March than what we are. Okay, next item on the agenda.
Need to call the vote, excuse me. I interrupted you, so you'll need to call the
Oh,
vote. Yeah.
sorry. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, next is 11C, resolution number 2024-13, 2040 Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map Amendment.
So this one is conditional on the first one.
Yeah.
So we would need to table this one as well to the same meeting.
Need a motion to table.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Eker, seconded by Padilla. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item is 11D, rescheduling our June 19th city council meeting.
So that meeting happens to fall on on a holiday, so we just need to reschedule it. The 26th, actually, we have an extra week between meetings there, so it kind of works out nice. But, and plus, you've already canceled the first meeting in July, so it works out okay.
So we need a motion to reschedule the meeting from June 19th to 6:30 PM on June 26th, 2024.
So moved.
Motion by Padilla,
I'll second it.
seconded by Groko. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay. Nothing under other or closing comments, so we just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Eker to adjourn, seconded by
Yeah.
Padilla. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Meeting adjourned.
Not gonna make